All right, so let me finish writing this. So we're looking at congruent triangles and how we can begin using information to prove that triangles are congruent. So we'll start with just the definition of congruent triangles. What does it mean to be congruent? Same, right? Same shape, same size for triangles. What this means for triangles is that you have corresponding angles and sides that match up to each other, and those corresponding parts are also considered congruent in this if the triangles are congruent. We're looking at congruent triangles. And up until now, we've written some different congruency statements like an angle congruent to an angle or a side congruent to a side. And the order of whatever we wrote didn't matter, right? But in this situation, when we start talking about triangles, we're going to have to start paying attention to those corresponding parts to make sure we write the congruency statement the same. So we're going to look at the congruency statement of triangles. So we'll start by looking at two triangles. And so when I'm looking at these triangles and trying to determine congruency, I have to note that a valid congruency statement must match up all the corresponding parts. So, is that right? Or wind? Must have been wind. A valid congruency statement must match up all the corresponding parts.
Can you write to the side? Because it's not going to
I'm going to put something there in just a second. Won't be too big. You probably could have used it somewhat. But All right, so if I'm writing a congruency statement of these triangles, and let's say I go ahead and say I want to know how to name the triangle congruent to A, B, C. Me and those little marks. I want to match up a triangle congruent to triangle A, B, C. And it says to be valid, it has to match up all the corresponding parts. How do I know what's corresponding to who in this situation? What you got, Kenya?
The lines.
What lines?
That's on the markings.
How do you know what goes with what, though?
Like the 2 markings go with the 2 markings on.
So it's the number, the count of how many markings are with them. So angle A matches up with who?
Angle D.
Angle D down here because they only have the 1 marking, right? And the same with the sides. AB matches up to ED over here because of the markings, right? The 1 marking. And so we could go around and look and see what all matches up to what, right? Well, when I'm writing this congruent statement, I'm going to match it up by the letters based on these angles. So angle A goes with angle D. So this will be start with triangle D. Angle B matches up to angle E. And lastly, angle C matches up to angle F. And if you check the sides, AB with DE. Yep. BC matches up with EF. And then on either side, AC and DF. AC and DF. So do they match all up? Yes. Okay. So, question?
Does that work with the sides too? Like it would work the same way with the sides and angles?
Right. See here, AB is matched up.
No, I'm saying like I know that, but I'm talking about like how there's the little lines.
Right. So this is 1 marking. This one goes with this one. 2 markings. This one goes with this one. 3 markings. This one goes with this one. Is that what you mean? Yeah. Yep. All right. So all day I've written this little acronym, and everybody's been able to figure out what it stands for. Let's see how you guys do. Got this acronym CPCTC. Any ideas what that stands for? Go ahead.
Corresponding parts correspond. Wait.
Oh, he says corresponding parts. He's right on the first part. Anybody want to help him out? Go ahead. Some about congruent triangles.
Corresponding parts congruent triangles converse.
No converse.
Configuration.
So there's a few little words, you know how in acronyms they leave out the little words, right? So if I say it like this, corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. And CPCTC, here as the days go on, we're going to start proving parts of triangles congruent. And the way we're going to prove that some of those parts are congruent, or prove that triangles are congruent, is by using this corresponding parts piece, okay? And basically, this is definition of congruent triangles, right? Up at the top, it said this means that all corresponding parts, sides, and angles are congruent, right? It's just by definition. But they call it CPCTC, and you'll see how it fits in over the next few days, okay? All right, so then we have some examples. We'll start with example 1. I'm going to squeeze it in right here. That's probably a bad idea, but I'm going to do it anyway. We're going to talk about triangle JKL congruent to triangle PQR. And we're going to talk about the angles and the sides that are congruent. And the angles seem to be fairly easy because they're just that one letter name, right? So Jarrett, can you tell me the two of the angles that are congruent?
JK.
No, just an angle, just one letter.
J and P.
J and P. So angle J is congruent to angle P. We agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Dixie, give me one.
K and Q.
K and Q. We know that angle K is congruent to angle Q.
L and R.
Go ahead, Alyssa.
L and R.
L and R. Angle L congruent to angle R. Yes? All right. Now let's look on the other side. Kenya, can you give me a sides?
JK is congruent to PQ.
Good. JK congruent to PQ. Centel? KL and who? Well, they're the last two over here, so it'll be QR over here. Yep. KL is congruent to QR. Last one. Dagan, what you think? I've used JK and I've used KL. Who's the last one? JL is congruent to who? PR. Now, what would have made this a little bit easier to note? What could I have done first?
A drawing.
I could have drawn a picture and marked things up, and that would have made it a little bit easier to list. I wouldn't have been so hard looking for those last ones, right? Any questions there? Okay, I'm going to turn my paper. We're going to look at letting you try one.
Practice one.
Practice makes perfect, right? Can I flip it? Oh, I'm losing it. I almost started all over. I started the 4 again. All right, practice. We're talking about triangle KPM congruent to triangle AY, that's a Y, C. Got ahead of myself there. There's going to be a few things that I want you to tell me the congruent statement of. KM, CY, PK, angle Y, angle K, angle ACY, triangle MPK, and triangle YAC.
Did you do that on purpose?
Yeah, you already E twice.
Oh.
Where the G is.
GH. Nope, didn't do it on purpose. Sorry,
I was making
guys.
sure before I had it wrote it.
All right, those are the congruent statements I want you to find. We'll start with that.